Hello, Aubrey. How's it going today?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm feeling great today, but I do have a question to
Okay.
start off our show today. You
All
ready?
right, let's hear it. Yeah.
So, do you know anyone in your life or maybe on TV that is really wacky?
Oh, wacky. Interesting. Jim Carrey comes to mind for sure. He has a really wacky sense of humor, always doing things that you would not expect, right? Out of left field. If
Yeah.
I think about my personal life, I definitely know people who are unique, funny, maybe even a little weird, but I don't think I would call anyone wacky. What about you? That's pretty
Yeah, well,
extreme, right?
I think wacky's pretty extreme. The personalities that come to mind, I think Jim Carrey, especially in he was in Dumb and Dumber, right? With
Yes.
John Daniels or
Uh-huh.
Jeff Daniels. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like Screech in Saved by the Bell was kind of a wacky personality.
For sure. Kind of
Personalities like
bizarre, like intentionally being really extreme with like a clown
yes.
who's intentionally trying to make people laugh loudly by just doing really wacky things.
Exactly, very silly. So that's a good example. So today we're getting into this word wacky. I have a feeling, Aubrey, that our listeners have maybe never heard this word.
Yeah, it's a little more rare than just weird, strange, even like bizarre that we don't hear wacky quite as often because it's so extreme.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, hit the follow button because over here at All Ears English, we teach you those words that you will not see in your textbook and you probably won't see in a classroom either. Right, Aubrey?
Exactly. Yes. Hit follow here on the podcast. This question came from YouTube. So if you prefer to like watch a video, we're over on YouTube as well. And we've got this great question. They actually had listened to an episode you and Michelle recorded, Lindsay,
Yes.
2213, Weird versus Strange in English. That was a really fun episode.
Yeah, that was fun. And then this follow-up question came from that episode. And here's the question. So the student says, I think there is also the expression of wacky and weird. What does that mean? How is wacky different from weird and strange? Thanks.
I
Whoa.
love this. I love that this student listened to an episode and they've got a lot of information about weird and strange and some of these words, but they didn't hear wacky. And they're like, okay, I've also heard wacky and I'm not sure when I could use it, how I could use it. So this
Yeah.
fun follow up question makes it like a part two for that episode.
And I also love, is it called double alliteration when you have two words that have the same letter at the beginning, wacky and weird?
Yes.
I love
Yes.
those. They roll off your tongue. We could do another episode about double alliterations and why they work maybe.
Absolutely right. Alliteration's really fun whenever you have that same consonant sound it just makes like it's great for jingles, for commercials, and anything like this,
Yeah.
right? Wacky and weird. Love it.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's probably why this phrase stuck in the mind of our listener because it is a double
Totally.
alliteration, wacky and weird. So, what was that other episode? Just to make sure our listeners go back to
Yeah.
that one.
2213, you can scroll up to see it. Weird versus strange in
Yeah.
English.
Totally. Let's get into it, Aubrey. So, first, we're going to teach the two words, a refresher on the word weird, and we're going to see what wacky means. And then let's put them together and see if that compounds the meaning or something.
Exactly. Yes, right? Okay, so wacky first, right? It means really funny, amusing, but in an odd or peculiar way. So odd is an interesting word. That's why you asked me if I know anyone who's wacky and I'm like, I don't know if I would describe anyone as wacky because I feel like it is a little bit negative. There's this
Uh,
collocation, this connotation of it being odd.
yeah. Yeah.
Whereas strange, weird, like these are more lighthearted. Wacky, if I called someone wacky and they aren't intentionally being really odd with their
Right.
humor, they might be offended.
Yeah, like, I think someone who I mean, they may be self-described wacky, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, they own it, that's okay, but often this person might be a little bit of a social outcast,
Yeah.
kind of weird, kind of on the outside.
You know what I think about the ray gun in the Olympics when she did her breakdancing routine? And this was such a meme. It was all over the news. It was people were finding it quite wacky. It was different than the average breakdancing.
Uh,
It was she was doing like a
oh,
kangaroo move. People were
right.
like making fun of because they thought it was very odd, very peculiar.
Interesting.
I actually loved it. And I
Did
was
she
reading
medal?
she didn't get any points. The judges
Oh.
didn't love it. But I
Oh,
read
no.
she was saying she intentionally was being creative and different, wanting to do something. So she kind of was purposely being a little bit wacky with her dance moves.
Well, I love that idea because it was the first year that breakdancing was in the Olympics, right?
Yes, and
So
it's the
starting
last
something.
I don't
The
think
last
they
really?
said LA said, "We're not doing breakdancing," and some people I think are blaming her, but that's crazy. Like, that's
Oh, no.
definitely not why it's happening in my opinion, why they're not doing
Interesting.
breakdancing anymore.
Okay, I guess I missed the whole controversy
I
that they're
cannot
not
believe you
doing it
missed
now.
it, Lindsay. You'll have to go and Google it when we leave here.
That's so funny. So wacky is just a little or maybe kind of outlandish could be another word we might
Yes.
use to describe it. A bit of an outcast, over the
Yes.
top, right?
Yes, right? You might
Yeah.
say, "That was a really wacky movie." This reminds me of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Is that what it was called? I
Yeah.
loved that film, but it was a little bit wacky. There were people
Uh,
had, like, hot dog fingers because there were
oh.
all these different dimensions. There were some things that were definitely wacky in that movie.
And then you had an example about an uncle, right? So should I read that
Mhm.
one, Aubrey?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I had an uncle that was really wacky, always playing practical jokes on everyone.
It often
Yeah,
describes the sense of humor, right? Like we
yeah,
mentioned Jim Carrey. I feel like everyone maybe has an uncle like that or someone who's like
yeah.
telling jokes or playing practical jokes and they would maybe like you said Lindsay self like describe themselves as wacky or having a wacky sense of humor.
Yeah, 100%. So that is wacky. It's a little over the top, a bit more than weird even. Well, what is the difference then with weird now?
Yeah, so weird is more like strange, unusual, unexpected, but we
Yeah.
wouldn't really say odd or peculiar necessarily. Those are more specific meanings with wacky, where it's like, this is really, like you said, over the top and
Mhm.
odd and peculiar. So just
Yeah.
more extreme. Weird is a little more normal, I
A
guess.
little weird is normal.
Yeah.
On all there's English at least. Yeah, I love it. So for example, something weird happened last night. I kept getting phone calls when I'd answer, the line would go dead. Yeah, so that's not wacky. There's nothing
It's not.
wacky. It's more that's more creepy.
Exactly. Weird can be
Like
like strange,
mhm,
creepy, unusual, unexpected. I might
out of the
say, this may
norm.
sound
Mhm.
weird, but I've never been to the beach. Like that's just different,
Yeah,
unexpected.
right.
Whereas neither of those things are wacky because wacky is more like peculiar, like just intentionally or unintentionally being very strange.
And I think wacky also has a silly nature to it too, right?
Yes.
Silly, kind of
Good point.
silly.
Whether
And
unintentionally or not, it's very silly.
and
Yes.
silly is sometimes defined as stupid, and silly is sometimes defined as playful, and I think of it more as playful, right?
Yes,
That
absolutely.
definition, yeah, kind of playful. There's a playfulness in wackiness, but that's not present really in weird all the time. It could be, but it's not necessarily,
Right,
right?
weird is actually a lot more flexible because you could be like, "Oh, I was being really weird when" or "That clown was weird." Like, someone that is more being wacky and silly, you could maybe call them weird, but you can rarely use wacky. Like,
Yeah,
all of these examples,
it's
something's
not,
more
yeah.
creepy weird, you wouldn't say wacky.
Yeah, it's definitely not wacky that you're getting a phone call at
No.
night and the line's going dead. It's the beginning of a horror movie. That's weird.
Exactly,
Ooh.
there's nothing silly or playful about it. That's right.
Scary. All right, good stuff. Okay, now we're gonna go into that double alliteration and put it into one fun phrase that our listener
Yes.
asked about, Aubrey. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so our listener asked about they have heard someone say wacky and weird, just saying it together. This isn't really an idiom or an expression. It's pretty rare, but you could definitely hear it. And I think it's what you said, Lindsay. It's that alliteration of the double W's, right?
Yeah.
So it might be just kind of fun. Like Ray Gun's another example. I could totally see someone describing this breakdancer and be like, her performance was wacky and weird. And so it's almost you're doubling up on it, right? It's not
Mhm.
enough just to say it's wacky. I'm doubling down for emphasis.
Yes, exactly. So you're driving home your point. To be both in one person or in one show is extra. It is extra.
It's
Uh,
extra, even more over the top, right? We just use both to share that it was extremely surprising, bizarre, silly, playful. We would
yeah,
never say, "Oh, this phone call that was creepy." We wouldn't say that was wacky and weird.
no,
No, because
yeah,
if we
for
add
sure.
wacky, it's just like it's more playful and silly, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. So describing a movie as wacky and weird, or can we flip it? I'm wondering about
Yes,
this. Yeah, if
for
it's not
sure.
because it's not really like a known. This isn't a known saying,
Right.
wacky and weird. This is a matter of someone combining two adjectives and it kind of works. But this is not a known saying or proverb or anything like that, right?
Exactly. So because of that, we could totally flip it and say weird and wacky. I might say, my sister said she went on a date last night and it was a weird and wacky. And then of
Yeah.
course I'm going to go into details and share like what was so strange, what was so odd.
Yeah.
But it's because
Yes.
it's not an idiom, it doesn't have to be word for word. It doesn't have to be in that order.
Yeah, it's important to know what is
Yeah,
actually an idiom or saying and what's just combining two words and saying something off that feels kind of zippy. I don't know. It feels good to say
exactly.
it, right?
Yes, I know, it's fun to say, it's the alliteration. I love zippy, it does sound zippy, but
Sounds
it is a
zippy.
little tricky. I think the main thing it'll be good to go into a role play here,
Yeah.
but we wanna think about what we would not say this about. We shared, like, the creepy phone call. Anything that's creepy weird,
Yeah.
unexpected in a way that's not super positive or playful, we wouldn't say wacky at all, so we also wouldn't say wacky and weird.
Yes. Yes. Totally agree. I love that. Should we go into the role play, Aubrey, to show our listeners where
Yes.
this comes into our language? Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it. We are
Mhm.
leaving the opening of a play, opening night.
Nice. Here we go.
That play was kind of wacky and weird.
I liked it though. It was very unique.
Definitely. The costumes and sets were all really wacky. It felt strange when the play was so serious.
That was a bit weird. Kept me on my toes. All
Nice.
right.
So I can
Good.
imagine this, like something about it was wacky, but in a playful way. It wasn't
Mm.
dark if I'm calling it wacky, right? I
Mhm.
imagine like the producers, I could see someone leaving that play in, if you guys have seen the Broadway show, The Producers, they intentionally do this play that they expect to be a flop. They expect it
Mm.
to fail, and it's about Hitler and the Holocaust, but they're making it sort of wacky. And because it's seen as like a farce, as like sarcastic, it ends up being successful. But I could imagine people leaving that play
Right.
and they would say wacky, whereas that wasn't expected. They thought it would be perceived as really dark.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. So there's a lot of nuances here when it comes to the meaning, right? This is
Yeah, for
about leveling
sure.
up to that 99% fluency level. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
through this. I first said that play was kind of wacky and weird. So this is we're
Yeah.
discussing right as we leave the play. We haven't talked yet about our thoughts, but I have found
Mhm.
it very bizarre and strange, but like not dark, kind of playful, or
Right.
I wouldn't call it wacky.
Exactly. And then I said, yeah, that was a bit weird. Kept me on my toes. So interesting that I said, kept me on my toes. I dropped the subject there. Right.
Yes, right? Because it's more informal grammar. You don't have to say "it kept me on my toes," and definitely don't repeat the subject. It's known to say, like, "The play kept me on my toes." This is a
No.
fun idiom, though, that to keep you on your toes means,
Hmm.
like, you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know
Yes.
what was coming.
Yeah. Have you seen any other good plays lately, Aubrey? Anything else out in the Broadway world or off Broadway world? Anything
I
else you've been?
There are plays when, Broadway shows tour here, they come
Yeah.
to the ASU, Arizona State University, to Gamage Auditorium, and we do go sometimes. I love it. We went to Hamilton, which was amazing.
Ah,
We
yes.
went to Finding Neverland was really good with our kids, Annie. What about you? Do you go to Broadway
Yeah.
shows a lot?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I lived in New York, I used to love going to Broadway shows. Here, I'm a
Yes.
little less inclined, although I know there's good talent here in Denver because I know there's like a direct path to New York, people coming back and forth. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
why exactly, but there seems to be that. So we've gone to a couple of, local plays over the
Oh,
last
that's
few
fun.
years, which are pretty cool. I
Yes.
love
I
that.
love
But
to do that too, especially if you can go in a very small venue. We went
yeah,
to Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. They did a play in this
nice.
tiny theater where the audience surrounds the stage, so everyone's really close. Those are
Hmm.
so fun. I love it.
I love it. And we did interview my friend Alan Seals, he is very much involved in the Broadway community in New York. If you guys are interested in learning more about Broadway, come back to allearsenglish.com, type in Alan, Alan. You'll find my interview with Alan. Really fun insider information about Broadway. Good stuff.
Yes,
All
awesome. And
right.
then the last one I just said, the costumes and sets were all really wacky. So that's why,
Mhm.
like, you loved the play, and so I'm kind of having to share what I thought was wacky, right? Well, the
Yes,
costumes
yes.
and sets were, and this would mean outlandish,
Right.
unexpected, maybe really bright colors and then the play was very serious, so I found
Yes.
that kind of wacky.
Right. Or what you said with the hot dogs as fingers,
The
right?
hot
That
dog
kind of
fingers,
thing.
yes. Have you seen It's Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I actually haven't seen it. I
You
need
need
to
to go
watch
watch
it. It
it.
always
It
comes
is
up on my
strange.
Netflix, like, watch this, as a
It's so good. I
suggestion.
cried. It's very heartwarming, it's very touching, but it also is
Mm,
wacky. So
wacky.
anyone
Yeah.
and Lindsay, if you watch, just be prepared for because there are all these other dimensions
Right.
where it's not just like humans on Earth. So
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
strange
yeah,
and
yeah,
wacky, but so
yeah.
good actually. It's such a
Oh.
great movie. It won a ton of like Oscars. It won a ton of Academy Awards because it was
I
fantastic.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will check it out. I will check it
Yeah,
out.
you'll have
Well,
to.
this is a great phrase. I mean, I think our listeners are now ready to carry this into their daily lives, connecting with native speakers. What's our takeaway today, Aubrey?
Yeah, well, think about when wacky things happen to you. This is such a great way to connect because it's something out of the ordinary, something unexpected. What a
Yeah.
great thing to spark a conversation about, to let someone know that you thought something was wacky and weird.
Yeah, for sure. This is a great conversation starter, as you said. And sometimes it's the more outlandish things that connect us to people. It's what people remember. Those are the stories people
Absolutely.
remember about us. It's what
Yes.
connects us. It makes you laugh. And when you laugh together, you actually connect, you build that emotional connection. So go for it. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? The best conversations are when
Yeah.
you're laughing and sharing some common humor. So fun.
100%. All right. Good stuff, guys. Hit that follow button if you love All Ears English, and we'll see you back on the next episode. Aubrey, take care.
See you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.